This is Success in Excess, where elite founders, lawyers, and clinic owners engineer success through strategy, scale, and systems. Powered by GrowthX.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Success and Excess. I'm your host, Tarun Singh. This is the podcast where founders break down what it really takes to be a success in today's industries. Today's guest is Tyler Brown of ZAF Legal. Tell us more, Tyler. How are you doing today? What's going on? You guys created ZAF Legal. It's changing the game when it comes to personal injury on the side of consumership, pretty much giving access to anybody and everybody to affordable and high quality personal injury services. So tell us how you got started.
All right, thanks for having me. I'd love to tell you about our genesis. Mostly, it's kind of an embarrassing story in some ways, but we'll just share it. I'm at this law firm. It's called Nuttall Brown and Coots. It's a 45-year-old kind of legacy small firm, good reputation, strong litigation background. So anyway, I'm at this firm. We get wind that the Utah Supreme Court is looking to shake things up in the practice of law, the way it's regulated. They're saying, hey, maybe we need to let, non-lawyers come on in and invest their capital, create technologies. Maybe we need to let lawyers partner more freely and fee share with non-lawyers. Maybe these things will create market conditions. It will be more competitive for the lawyers, which maybe that's scary for lawyers, but it could be a lot better for the consumer because ultimately there's a lot of distrust of the legal system. There are a lot of people feeling like the legal system is not meeting their needs. And that's objectively true by every statistical metric we have. And so the Supreme Court's like, we're going to try things. We're going to just shake it up and we're going to let people experiment. We heard about it and we're like, we got to stop them. Our firm depends on this. And so we all pulled out our swords and we're figuring out how we're going to fight this change in regulatory approach. And after sleeping on it for maybe a day or two, we all met and we'd all come to the same conclusion, which is, hey, look, if there's a way to serve our clients better, if there's a way to meet the needs of the public better than what we're doing, we shouldn't oppose that. We should be at the forefront. So we started working on, what would we do if we could innovate? What innovation could we pursue? And we had this thought of maybe we can just open the playbook to people and give them the information, all the stuff they would want to know about handling their own claim. And then if they still want a lawyer, they can pass it off to us. And if not, then they don't have to. So we got venture funding. And we started building an AI tools 5 years ago. It was before there were any open source AI tools out there.
Wow.
Every time we went to release it, it was a dinosaur because AI has grown really, really fast. And so it was really hard for us to stay at the forefront. But here we are. We've got a very effective AI that anyone can access. You can get information about valuing your claim and help you write a good demand letter and help connect you with a lawyer if you need it. So that's where we're now at.
Amazing. And so let's clarify to our audience. ZAF Legal, ZAF, the acronym means zero attorney fees, correct?
That's right.
So tell us about, that whole, concept.
When we were trying to think of ideas for innovating in the practice of law, one of my partners, he said, well, what if we could do it for free? And we thought, well, what could we do for free? And we thought, well, we can share information for free. So that became the basis. That was the rallying cry, the mission was, we just want to produce something for the public that's truly free. And that's why we named it Zero Attorney Fees. So there really is no charge. It's just an online information tool. And then if someone decides they want to get a lawyer involved, they can turn it over on a contingency fee, which is a nice fee structure. A lot of people argue there's no access to justice gap in personal injury because anyone can afford the best lawyer. Well, it's true that anyone can hire the best lawyer in personal injury, but it's still true that you're paying those lawyers a lot. A third of $1 million settlement is $333,000. That's a lot of money for those legal services. So it's not cheap. It's disingenuous for lawyers like me to say our services are cheap because they're not. And the reality is because they're expensive, people are deterred from hiring a lawyer. So we're trying to give people options, right? It's like, if you want to do it yourself, hey, we'll help you. And more likely than not, as you get doing this yourself, you will start to realize the value a lawyer brings because you have more information. You understand the process. And at that point, you become convinced, okay, it's worth it to me to pay a third to a lawyer. Or maybe you've got a case where a lawyer's not going to make a bit of a difference. And so you don't.
Yeah. And I mean, in reality, when you look at it, I think it's an amazing play on people's intellects and trusting them to make the right decision. Because if you really look at certain things, there's an ideology where, let's use an analogy. If you give a man all the steps and all the tools to make $1 million, let's just use $1 million. Literally, if he follows every single step to the T, he will make $1 million. 99% of people will never achieve that $1 million and will end up going to somebody to try to get them to do it for them. And in that same concept, you guys create ZAF Legal. It gives the audience information, it gives them the tools, and allows them to be a more informed consumer. So that way, when they do make that decision, hey, I need an attorney, they're not going off of shadow promises and hopes and dreams of something happening. They have some tangible, actual data that now they can bring to an attorney, and they will realize that those years of experience and litigation and document investigations and medical experts going all through that, it's much more advantageous to get an attorney. But going through that whole process and figuring all that out and then just getting let down, being like, thinking you have a case, calling attorneys, da 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 da. And now you guys kind of streamline that. Beautiful, beautiful.
It's really, I mean, and you've already kind of hit on this a little bit, but it was really an attempt to increase the amount of trust that our clients have in us. It's really interesting. We did a lot of research before we actually built the product, trying to figure out what are these clients and potential clients, because a lot of these people have cases, but they don't hire a lawyer. So what do these people who have cases all have in common? And one of the things we learned is that they just have a really deep-seated distrust of lawyers. In fact, they distrust a lawyer whose incentive is perfectly aligned with them, with the contingency fee, right? If the lawyer does a good job on the case and gets a high settlement, that's good for the lawyer, it's good for the client. So incentives are aligned. Well, they distrust that lawyer in that situation more. They distrust that lawyer more than they distrust the insurance company who is adverse to them. The insurance company who's like, their bonuses depend on how little they can pay on your claim. Well, guess what? They still trust the insurance more. And that's shocking. That was like such a disturbing revelation to us when we were doing all of our paid research. But it's true. These insurance companies do a good job earning trust, like a good neighbor, right? You're in good hands.
Until
Anyway,
you need something.
yeah. But the reality is they're operating in an adverse claim system where the law tells them, no, you're an adverse party and you should try to pay as little as possible. And then, there should be on the other side, there should be a party who's adverse to them. And right, they fight it out and that's how they get to a fair result. But people just trust these insurance companies and they're settling their claims for pennies on the dollar because they would rather not be that kind of person that hires a lawyer.
I think it's also about a lack of information for the audience.
Oh, yeah.
Because in the reality of things, people trust insurance companies more and they look at it in a very twisted concept where, hey, they don't trust the lawyer, but if you really look at it, they trust the insurance company because they're the one giving me money and they think the lawyer is taking money. But they don't realize that the $1 million settlement or $500,000 settlement they received, right? And all of that is only because the lawyer, and the lawyer is the real one actually getting you the opportunity to solidify that money. If it was up to the insurance guy, he'd have probably given you zero or maybe 10 grand and said, go on your way. But switching that ideology and understanding, hey, the insurance company is not really giving you money. The attorney is claiming and taking back what's actually should be yours, which is justice, compensation for your damages. And I think that whole mindset needs to be shifted because from when we look at things, we work with, I can't even tell you how many law firms over the years. And one of the things that we've learned from a lot of clients, especially in the personal injury space, you're absolutely right. A lot of people have cases, and almost 60 to 80% of people that have real viable cases never see an attorney, never make a claim. They may call the insurance company first, say, hey, I got injured, I got to do this. And they'll be like, oh, we'll cover, whatever fee there's, $3,000-$4,000, and it's closed. And if they ever try to pursue it later, the attorney's like, hey, I can't help you because you already called the insurance guy.
You released your claim.
Yeah, and it's sad, but you also got to look at one thing, and people need to understand that, hey, these companies are multi-billion-dollar corporations that are swaying media, They have the manpower, they have the finances, they have the pull in Congress, they have all these aspects, and they're not there. Trust me, they're not in the business of losing money.
Yeah, it's not a fair fight if you're an unrepresented person on your own against that company. It's not a fair fight.
No, no. So tell me, so you guys had come up with this system, and how long has it been launched now?
So we've had varying versions of it launched for the last 3.5 years, but the system as it exists today, I think our latest version was just launched within the last couple of months. It's much better on the education side of things. It's a very sophisticated educational program and still has the settlement demand capability. Maybe the biggest improvement, though, that we've made over the years has been to our attorney network. So when someone does decide, I do want to at least consult with a lawyer, I want a free consult about how much my case is worth, the years of curating that network have really paid off. And we've got really solid partners in every jurisdiction now.
Awesome, awesome. And I'm assuming in that system, right, it also helps the attorneys as well, because now you've compiled all this data on the person. They take the next step and say, hey, I want to get a free consultation. You send over the file to the attorney, and now he doesn't have to go through the hours of going back and forth with them trying to figure everything out. It's all kind of
It's
wrapped up.
so slick with all of our partners. They've all integrated with our system, our case management system. And so, you chat with an AI, you get a text message. Next thing you know, you're signed up and you've got an attorney who's already sending out letters of rep on the case. I mean, it's so easy, so slick. And, a lot of people hate going through the really extended intake process. And this is a real streamlined way of doing it.
Now, let me ask you this question. I know, and this is just based off of like real data that we've seen in the industry. A lot of people get, how do I say, deterred when going through with a personal injury claim. A lot of times, because, hey, they want you to do 8 weeks of physical therapy, right? It's that whole time gap where a lot of people, and I hate to say it like this, but a lot of people are in instant gratification where, you're gonna have to go to physical therapy. You have to build your case and show that you're actually injured. And maybe 6 months down the road, once you've completed all that, we can go forward and try to get a claim. And then in that process, right, in those 1, 2, 3 week process, they fall off. I think by, creating ZAF Legal, you guys have been able to tap into, the psyche of the consumer and be able to provide them not only, the assistance they need, but streamline the process where now it's that elongated time frame that gives them the ability to second guess themselves, question whether or not it's worth it. Because a lot of people, you can tell them, hey, you got to put in, I mean, realistically, a lot of people, you put in a work, and you tell them, hey, you got to do this work, you got to do this work, you got to do this work. And in a couple of months, we'll see what's going on. And then we can try to get you, a good settlement. Or if we have to, we can go to trial and try to get a verdict. And they just can't see that far, you know, and they kind of shoot themselves in the foot.
Timing is
What's your
one of the
thought?
most common. It's one of the most common inquiries we get, and we've had to do a ton of training with our AI and our prompt writing to be able to answer questions about timing in a way that people can swallow. Because here's the reality. The reality is this: you only get one shot. You get one bite at the apple. And so if you submit your claim prior to knowing the full extent of your damages, you're not going to get the full extent of your damages. And that sucks. It's really, really miserable when I get a phone call, and this happens probably weekly, where we have someone who settled their claim and then after settling it went and had surgery. And it's like, well, gosh, that's probably 6 figures of damages you just gave up. But we encounter it a lot. So we have to open their eyes to the risks of settling your claim early. That's a critical thing that ZAF Legal does. But there's another aspect to this, which is timeliness of justice. If justice isn't timely, is it actually justice? It's like, so speeding up what we call time on desk. It's just the time from when we get signed to the time we're dispersing. That's been an actual explicit objective of our firm since I've started practicing. And the time on desk really, really is impacted by a lot of factors. But one thing that people should know about, no one knows about this. This is like attorneys know about this, but the public, they don't know about this unless you're chatting with ZAF Legal. If you have an injury claim and it's, say, an adverse driver's got you, right? And they have a policy limit that is set at $25,000 and your damages are, who knows what they're going to be. They're ongoing. You're going to be treating for a year or more because you've got some serious injuries that just aren't resolving. Well, do you still have to wait till your injuries, till you know the full nature and extent of your injuries to collect that 25,000? The answer is no. As soon as your damages, as soon as there's even a hint that they might exceed those limits, there should be a settlement demand going out. And this is the kind of case where you may not need a lawyer because the insurance company might say, okay, this person has a policy limits case, and with or without a lawyer, we're going to end up having to pay this. And so now it's like, well, gosh, maybe you shouldn't hire a lawyer because they're going to pay the limit anyways. And now the question becomes, is there any additional source of insurance coverage? And that's where a lawyer can make a big difference. So anyway, those are just some things. Policy limits play a huge role in making sense of timing on a claim. And additional coverages are really hard to find without a lawyer.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way that if there's a policy limit, you go through it without a lawyer. I mean, generally, most of the time, they're not even going to want to give you the policy limit, right?
Usually not, but sometimes they will.
Yeah, sometimes they will if they see it's like, extensive enough. But they'll take advantage of you in that situation that you don't have a lawyer and try to, give you the quick check so you can go on your way and it's closed. But, using ZAF Legal, it kind of gives you the opportunity to know your options, know your situation, and then make a more informed judgment. I mean, I can't tell you how monumental a tool like this would be because in this day and age, personal injury claims have gone up, I believe, almost 40% since 2010. That means 40% more year after year, people are filing claims. And maybe that's because there's more people on the road. Maybe that's just, there's more population, or maybe it's just because the audience itself is more educated on the topic and they understand that, going after that is not as, I guess, what's it called?
Not as taboo.
Yeah, not as taboo. But that's another thing. With this podcast, the whole reason we want to bring this out there is we work with personal injury, criminal defense, tax, I mean, all types of attorneys. And specifically personal injury, there's a very negative connotation for personal injury lawyers.
Very
They're
negative.
unethical, they're ambulance chasers, they're just out to make a quick buck. But people don't understand you guys are dealing with human beings on a daily basis that are going through some of the worst events in their life, shattered families, lost careers, physically, just total
They're
disasters.
in
People
pain.
are, yeah, they're in pain. And you guys are not just there to collect a check, you guys are also there to counsel them and help them through this. And they need to see that you're more of an advocate and you're actually there to help them than say, oh, yeah, their job is to make money, but their job is to make sure that you make money and you get justice on your pain and suffering. And it's not like I said, even when I brought up the $1 million analogy, if an attorney gets you in $1 million settlement, or even if the verdict comes out to be $1 million in the verdict through a jury trial, realistically, I mean, the numbers. What do you think would be like, let's say on $1 million verdict at jury, what do you think they're actually would have actually received without an attorney and went just through insurance?
Yeah. So this is not a made up, this is a real life scenario. I have talked to people who had $1 million cases. Their damages would have been $1 million verdicts, similar cases in various jurisdictions across the country got $1 million verdicts, and they had settled their cases for $1,500. I've seen it. I've seen it happen. And it's because on your own, you just don't know what you don't know. And the insurance company knows that you have no way of enforcing the claim. So they can play their games and there's no consequence. There's no consequence.
And that's the sad part. So all that money, let's say $1,500 settling when it could have been $1 million. That's what, 98,500
It's
that
basically
the
$1 million.
lawyer yeah, yeah, basically $1 million. And you have to give the lawyer what percent, 33%. I mean, that seems like an amazing deal for me. I mean, you would have walked away with, that's not even a mortgage payment. That's maybe a car note if you
Right.
got bad credit.
Yeah, that's true. There you go. Yeah, that's exactly right. That's
So
exactly.
what's the next steps for ZAF Legal? So you guys launched the updated version. You guys are really like pushing it hard now. What's your next steps?
So we have in beta right now, we have the same sort of playbook opening for probates, wills, trusts, estates, criminal, divorce. All of those AIs are in beta and being tested, but we want to be able to open the playbook in these other areas of law where we can educate people, help them understand what they're doing if they're trying to do things on their own, and then, most importantly, to link them to legal solutions, whether it's lawyers or legal tech, but linking them to solutions when they realize they need it and want it. So we're trying to really bridge the access to justice gap. Before I die, I'm going to build a beautiful bridge, an actual bridge. And we'll name it the bridging of the access to justice gap,
The bridge of justice.
the bridge of justice. I like that.
You know, that's such a beautiful concept. And the fact that you guys are bringing it to the other various fields of law. Now, does ZAF Legal, and this is just, a question for myself, if somebody comes in there, they have a viable claim, but let's say it's easier for them to not get an attorney. Will it take care of the whole process for them, handling the adjuster, getting the payout from the insurance and all that, or is that the second part?
So it will basically assemble all of their case information into a settlement demand to kick off negotiation. And it will help them to know if they're being treated fairly or not. And so if someone decides, hey, I'm going to DIY this thing, they use ZAF, they generate a settlement demand, they submit it to an insurance adjuster, and then they start a negotiation process. They're now in touch with ZAF and they have access to live attorneys if they want to talk about, hey, am I being treated fairly or not? They also have access to the AI, which will do the same thing, just not as detailed. And so if at any point they realize, and this is 95% of claims, they will realize that they're not being treated fairly. And the only way to enforce the claim at that point is to use a lawyer. And so they will turn it over to us if they run into that hurdle. However, we also see, and if I should pull up some of our reviews, you'll see plenty of instances where someone had started negotiating on their own. Then they found ZAF, they resubmitted it, and they got 10 times more without ever hiring a lawyer. And so it's just people don't know how to value their claims. They don't know what things make a difference or move a needle on valuation. And ZAF helps you to assemble that so that at least you're putting the right information in front of the adjuster. They're still going to play their games, but you've got a better shot.
I mean, with that, you guys are pretty much wrapping everything up in such a nice way. I think I saw, and don't hold me to this, but I thought I saw a quote somewhere about, how it just made the whole process so much easier for them to bear when dealing with I mean, you gotta realize the person's injured. They're not in their best frame of mind, nor are they in the position right now to make, really strong decisions on a topic that they're not experts in, nor are they, I mean, literally it's get in an accident, you're discombobulated, and even at your best, you're not even a fraction of what a personal injury attorney would know. How has the user experience been with you guys so far?
Well, it's been it's been quite a journey. When it first launched, it was more of like a TurboTax type software, and it was very, very cumbersome. It was really extensive. It took forever, and it was not a good user experience. But now it's extremely flexible and adaptable, no matter where you are. Whether you're at the very beginning of your case, you just had an accident, and you're just trying to learn and get your bearings. It's great for that. Now, let's say you're way downstream and you're about to settle your case and you've got an offer on the table and you're staring at a release agreement in your inbox and you're like, wait a second, should I take it? Well, it's also extremely efficient and helpful for that person. So right now the user experience is so strong, and that's because of the advances of AI. And again, we were building AI before OpenAI was even formed. I mean,
Before AI was a thing.
so it was yeah. So I mean, we've got a lot of experience with it, and we try to make it really simple and adaptable and flexible to whatever you need. And maybe the best thing about it is we can facilitate really rapid linkages with attorneys, live attorneys who are happy to talk to you. That's just a nice backstop to have in place.
And if you won't mind for a moment, Tyler, I want to actually read one of these reviews that you guys currently have for ZAF Legal, right? ZAF is an amazing and unique firm that uses AI to make the process easier and more efficient. The ZAF team is always willing to answer my questions at any time. A second one, the attorneys and staff at ZAF Legal are excellent. Working with them is easy and efficient. I would recommend them to anyone who has been injured in an accident, big or small. I mean, these are just, they go on, and these are just testaments to what you guys are actually doing and making an impact, because it's very hard, dealing with these circumstances and having a seamless system. AI is branching out in every single industry. And this is one where AI is bringing more of a, I guess, compassionate, emotion filled experience where, I mean, people need you, honestly, at the end of the day. Like it's sad when insurance companies who are notorious for, I mean, they're probably, and for any insurance person, hearing this, they're probably one of the most unscrupulous businesses in today's industries or markets. I mean, their whole business model is based on you paying for years and years and years and years for whatever it is, and they're hoping that you don't have a catastrophe. And when you have a catastrophe, thinking that you paid years and years and years into it, and they never really want to give you the money that you're owed. And the question is like, like you said, like a good neighbor, whatever, all the, stand by you and blah, 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 blah. It's not true. I mean, it goes all the way from car insurance to, dealing with adjusters on actual, serious injury matters.
But
I
I
love
mean,
what you guys are doing.
it is an adversarial system. Like I guess if you're going to try to justify some of the actions of insurance companies, they can say, well, gosh, I mean, we operate in an adversarial system, so we are adversarial when it comes to paying claims. That's the way it was built. It was designed that way. It's supposed to be that way. But it feels a little disingenuous when the marketing is you're in good hands, like a good neighbor, like it's like we are in an adversarial system, but you just try to convince everyone that you're not.
Yeah. And you have the money to do that. And also they're playing on the the infrequency of it happening. So a lot of people, they pay into these insurance systems and the ideology that, if anything happens, they got my back. They're hoping nothing happens, but if something does, they're prepared to make sure that they, pay as little as possible and make it as difficult as possible. And I think what you guys are doing, you know, when I first read about ZAF Legal, I was actually amazed looking at it. Zero attorney fees. You guys are giving all this data away for free, and even better, if it gets a little bit more complicated than you can do by yourself, you guys are connecting them with the top attorneys in the field. I mean, what can you ask? Could you ask for more? I mean, I don't know how much, maybe, I don't know how you could ask for more in a situation. So, with that at hand, how have you guys seen the projection, go forward, current personal injury metrics that you guys are dealing with? And, you guys are moving into different phases of industries of law. I mean, how do you think that that next segue is going to work for you guys?
Well, it's, up until now, we've focused heavily on trying to land Utah cases. Well, I'm licensed in Utah and Arizona, but primarily Utah cases, right? And that has been where we've really focused. But we've had a lot of out of state traffic coming organically to ZAP. And we hadn't really known how can we help these people until we've finally built out a really robust network that covers better than Verizon coverage, right? We've got a over now. So now that we have that infrastructure, now the next phase, to answer your question, is we can just help anyone across the country who's wondering, well, just trying to get their bearings after an accident, or wondering how much their claim is worth, or wondering if they should hire a lawyer, wondering which lawyer to hire, all of these things, all these unknowns. We just wanted to be the starting point. So if the need exists anywhere in the country, before you go and do anything else, here's just a starting point, and it'll just take you by the hand and walk you through. It'll teach you what you want to know, and it will link you to a lawyer when you're ready, and it will do it really easily. So that's what we want to be, is the starting place for legal needs. And eventually it won't just be for injury legal needs. It'll be for any legal need.
Hmm. So, in my prediction, I'm assuming that in the next probably year or so, if anybody anywhere in the United States is dealing with any type of injury claim, and I guess when you guys segue the other industries, what you're going to see on top of any Google search is going to be ZAF Legal. It's going to be the starting point for where you can start actually getting an informative decision on what your next steps should be,
Yeah.
how to handle your case,
Yeah.
and streamline it in such a way where you don't have to do that, guess who's the best attorney
Yeah.
type of search it up and try to figure out, am I making the right decision or not? I mean, it's kind of handled for you. I mean, it's a game changer, be honest, but also to that, Tyler, you have such an experience in the field. I mean, you had numerous seven-figure settlements. I believe you're an adjunct professor at Brigham Young University. You're also, teaching young people how to do leadership. Tell us, some of those outside, initiatives that you're doing that really makes you the type of leader that people want and need to see.
Thanks. Well, I do take seriously the responsibility to lead the profession into the future. And one of the capacities that I'm serving in right now is I sit on a committee for regulatory reform. This is a committee that was assembled by the Utah Supreme Court to evaluate the success of their experiment, the Utah Legal Sandbox, where they said, hey, we're going to let people experiment with the rules and see what outcomes are produced, see if it can bridge that access to justice gap in some way. So anyway, now they're looking at making more permanent rule changes. This is like, I mean, think of the consequences of this would be really far reaching, because now they're looking at saying, hey, maybe we really do need to just revisit the whole way that the profession is regulated, because currently it's being regulated in large part by lawyers in the interest of lawyers, right? It's protecting lawyers from disruption in the marketplace. And so anyway, our committee is putting together recommendations to the court about whether a change to the way that the practice of law is regulated could, whether it's safe to the public and whether it's actually beneficial to the public. And that kind of work, I'm extremely passionate about it, because I believe that all regulation in any industry ought to be, without exception, in the interest of the public, protecting the public from harm and also promoting solutions to their needs. So we will have just a tidal wave of legal solutions wash over this country if the practice of law is regulated in such a way that it's no longer concerned about are lawyers going to be disrupted as much as it is concerned about, how is the public faring? Because right now, 92, what depends on the study, between 92 and 94% of civil legal needs are unmet. And that's because there's just not a robust marketplaces of solutions. Sorry, a robust marketplace for solutions. That's going to change. I see it changing. I love being part of that change. And to me, that is the impact and legacy I really want to.
And with that, so I have to ask a question, and I don't really know your opinion on it, but I would like to hear it. So I've talked to quite a few personal injury attorneys, founders of firms, and always, bring up the topic of, what do you feel about, venture capitalists, private investors coming into firms? And some of them are definitely for it because it helps because, you're with a firm that was 45 years in the making. A lot of people that start their own firm, cash flow is hard. If they had an investor, they could, do better. But I think some of the concerns that a lot of people had in the beginning was, is it going to be, a money grab, where you get these big investors coming in, they start dictating how to operate cases, and it's just about the bottom line rather about justice. What's your point on that?
Great question, and such a relevant topic to be discussing. Yeah, there are a lot of lawyers. I would say the vast majority of lawyers want to keep any non-lawyers out of the industry. They just want to keep them out. And my response to that is the weakest warriors want the tallest walls. If there's a firm that has a venture capital partner and that firm is able to attract clients because their offering is better, well, then they should win because that's better for the client. If it's not better for the client, guess what? They won't last very long because they need clients. So any argument against it ignores the invisible hand of the market. It ignores market forces. Now, here's the other thing. Regardless of whether the industry is regulated different, regardless of whether it opens up the way I want, the needs of the people are so dramatic. They're so large and they're so unmet that there will be non-law companies that come in and meet those needs. It's already happening. If we were to figure out how many people draft their tenant lease agreements on ChatGPT every day, I'm sure it's in the tens of thousands, right? And that's because lawyers aren't providing that service. We just don't do it. And so the unmet needs of the consumer are already inviting non-law companies to solve law problems. And so it's like, do we want to be a part of it or not? Because if lawyers want to be a part of it, then we've got to stop protecting ourselves and we've got to start innovating and serving the consumer. And that's really what the question comes down to. There is another, inherent question is like, well, would a venture capitalist be inherently less ethical than a lawyer? Please. I guarantee you not. I guarantee you that the personal injury lawyers who are so worried about the ethics of a venture capital firm have lower standards. I guarantee it, because those venture capital firms have entire departments of attorneys who are focused on nothing but compliance. It's all they eat, breathe. It's with their whole living. Yeah, personal injury lawyer running a firm. You know how much time you spend thinking about compliance? Like basically your 12 hours of CLE a year max. And so the argument that somehow us lawyers are just so much more morally superior to all other professions, particularly those who have a lot of money. Also, we have a lot of money too, but we don't like anyone to know about that. I mean, that to me is such an empty glass argument. I mean, it just doesn't hold water. And yeah, it's just limiting. I mean, it's hard for a small firm to go out and develop robust technology without some funding.
And you're right. with that, such a well-placed argument, and I will say majority of the attorneys that I have heard that have generally gone against it, their first and only, thing that they stand on is, well, we're bound by ethics, we're bound by ethics. But in reality, I mean, you're right. These venture capitalist firms, these private equity firms, they have armies of attorneys that are doing compliance and they're not going to risk there are hundreds of millions of dollars open up to lawsuits and other issues for, it's a very small-minded look at things. I mean, they have a bigger picture at play.
Right.
I mean,
Their
it's
business
like
wants
it's
you to
like a
see.
car.
Like,
Yeah, it's not worth it.
yeah, it's just like if what you're doing is unethical, that means it's not helping your clients, right? Like ethics as from whose perspective? The lawyers are saying, well, I'm worried about the ethics of these non-lawyers. But what do they actually like if you ask that lawyer, and I've done this on debate stages where you ask these lawyers to tell me like which ethics are you most worried about? And they're saying, well, they're going to be profit motivated. And I'll be like, okay, so when you're handling a case, you're not trying to
Not
get the
profit
highest
motivated.
possible settlement for your client. So who's unethical now? Right. Like, and
Yeah.
really the ethics, when they use the word ethics, what they're actually talking about are the model rules of professional conduct, which are the rules
Mhm.
that prohibit fee sharing with non-lawyers, those creative
Yep.
partners, prohibits investment and things like that. Those are not actually ethics because they don't protect the public. They protect the lawyer. So it's like the ethics that potentially hurt my business,
Sweet.
you would be violating. And it's like, well, yeah, I don't care about your business. I only care about the public. That's anyway, you can tell. I don't get me going on this one. Yeah.
And that's why you're the best person to be at the front of all of this because you understand and believe in the public and the consumer comes first. And the attorney is just, I wouldn't say a tool, but he's an asset for that public consumer, just like a doctor. A doctor doesn't perform a surgery for any advantage other than giving the patient the best care possible within his hands. And there's no ulterior motive. Yes, they make a lot of money on it, but I mean, rarely you'll see a doctor say, hey, you need a liver transplant because I'm going to make $250,000 versus, here, take a pill that's going to help your liver. It's just not really happened. So the argument that ethics is the reason that people don't want venture capitalists or private equity, it falls flat in so many different ways that consumers deserve the ability to have access to a tool like this. And, as we wrap this up, I will tell you that I'm extremely excited about ZAF Legal and its evolvement over the next couple of years and how, most importantly, how much it helps the people get access to what they need, which is justice. And even in the, less affluent, you know, neighborhoods or the less affluent areas where education isn't, very, it's hard to find. You think educated consumers are hard to find. And a lot of times they are the biggest victims. They get treated very, get treated horribly by a lot of these insurance companies and other people. And they don't know, like, think about somebody who's generally, in the poverty line, taking welfare. They get in a car accident, they get hit. The insurance adjuster offers them $5,000, right? They've never seen $5,000 cash in their life. They've never had a $5,000 solid check. Maybe if they work for 4 months, 2 weeks, they add it all up, but they'll never see 5,000 as a whole. That's kind of being very deceptive and taking advantage. And I wouldn't say of a weaker person, but you're taking advantage of their weakness, right? You wouldn't accept a case. I mean, you make good money, but if somebody threw $25,000 at you because you lost your leg, you're going to be like, my leg is a lot more valuable, right? And it's sad. So with that, as we wrap this up, ZAF Legal, and tell us where the audience can find you and find ZAF Legal and how can they get access to this tool?
Yeah. ZAFlegal.com. Just go there and chat. It's as easy as that. But I want the audience to find me personally. And so please look me up on Instagram. My handle is at attorney_preneur. Attorneypreneur. Message me on Instagram. Send me a message that says case, and I will send you a little 2-page document I put together for this podcast that is a real detail. And this is more detailed than what the AI can give you and still be compliant with regulations. It'll be a real detailed explanation that's still very simple on how an attorney would value your case if you're in an accident. So it has basically all the levers that affect case value, all summarized in a little 2-page document that normally I would only share with like an attorney associate who I was training. But I'll give it to anyone who messages me on Instagram, and it'd be fun.
Guys, Tyler is real. That's Tyler Brown. And I will go back to the reviews. One thing about Tyler that I noticed in all these reviews at ZAF Legal, 40 of them referenced Tyler as, one of a kind, a great guy, just a resource that he's out there to help you guys. And he's the CEO, he's the founder. He's also, a partner and founder of another firm. I mean, he's a busy guy. And the fact that you can get in contact with him, and then the fact that all the reviews are talking about Tyler being, the number one guy, shows his commitment to not only his craft as a personal injury attorney, but ZAF Legal itself.
Thanks.
Tyler, it's been great to have you today. I mean, I can't even say how excited I am for ZAF Legal to really take over the market. And, not because I want it to grow financially, but because I want the people to get what they deserve when they're having these issues.
Amen.
It's been amazing having you. And guys, if you're growing your own firm, if you're growing your own business, if you're looking to scale, the number one thing I tell everybody is focus on sustainability when you're scaling so your foundation is strong. If you're looking for high level marketing for your firm or for any law firms in that matter, reach us at GrowthX. We're here to help you. Even if you just need advice on how to fix your funnel, how to run your advertisements, or even if you just need some tips on how to get you in the right direction, we're always here. We're always open to free consultations and really just want to help our attorney founders really grow and make sure they're having a firm that's, going to last a legacy. But today's episode was great, guys. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate your time. If you like this episode, reach Tyler at his Instagram handle if you need any case matter information or just want to chat. And as well, subscribe, like, and make sure to comment down below. Until next time, guys, stay smart, scale smart, and remember to focus on the end prize. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you.
Own your growth. Scale with systems powered by GrowthX. Subscribe to Success in Excess for those who lead with precision and scale with purpose.